You know, they don't even try to hide it anymore. The contempt that vehicle manufacturers around the world have for any competition is just become so blatant, so obvious, so aggressive lately that you really can't miss it. They want anybody who isn't them out of business. They want to sell their cars, resell them once, and then that's it. They want them to disappear. The war is against the DIYer, independent shops, and the used car industry. They want us all gone. We are the big guys and we will crush you. And that's what they're doing, full on assault. So, this is great. I'm flipping through YouTube and I come across, you know these repair videos, just rolled in and all of that. I come across a clip about a Hyundai Stinger. I know this is a car that was built by Hyundai from, I guess, 2017 to like 2023. Beautiful car, very nice car. And this would apply to the G70 also. So here's the situation with this. In order to replace the alternator, just a simple alternator. In order to replace the alternator on a 3.3 liter turbocharged version of this car, you have to pull the motor. You actually have to remove the engine in order to change the alternator. Okay, so perhaps you're not a mechanic and you don't understand the significance of this. The alternator is a common wear part. It is fully expected that during the lifespan of a car, it's going to get at least one alternator. It's a wearable part. Bearings go bad, brushes stop brushing, regulators stop regulating, diodes stop dioding, all sorts of things go wrong with these. And it's a universal system. Every car, truck, vehicle built around the world over the last like 70 years has one of these. It's a universal system. It's like a universal part. They're all different as far as configuration and output, but it's an alternator. Okay. So it's a common wear part. These common wear parts, things like alternators and starters and water pumps and brakes, are really the foundation of the aftermarket auto parts business, the foundation of the small independent shops. They're the DIYer. So if you're a DIYer and you go that step beyond changing your oil and rotating your tires, it's the starters, water pumps, alternators, and brakes that you do. And then when it comes to the used car market, every independent used car lot out there has a little setup at the back where they've got a part-time mechanic that tinkers around and keeps their fleet going, and it's stuff like starters and alternators, and the availability and the affordability and the ease of replacing these parts that makes that whole system viable. All right, so here's the deal with this, okay? In order to replace the alternator on one of these cars, you've got to drop the motor. This is by Hyundai's own, this is crazy. This is by Hyundai's own, procedure. Actually, the first step in replacing the alternator for this, I looked into this, right? The first step in replacing the alternator on one of these cars is to remove the turbocharger intake manifold. Okay, that seems pretty reasonable. Okay, so you go to the first step of removing the intake manifold. Remove engine. Remove engine. Their book calls for between 14 and 17 hours to change the alternator. It's hard to even wrap your head around this, okay? Between 14 and 17 hours to change the alternator. I guess on the short side of the scale, the 14-hour part of the scale is probably a two-wheel drive version, and then they have a four-wheel drive version, and that's probably the 17-hour. Either way, okay? This is something that should take no longer. Okay, when alternators first came on the scene, I don't know, every manufacturer put them front and center. Just you open the hood and boom, the first thing you see is the alternator. They could take anybody 10 minutes to change it using just basic hand tools. Then automotive revolution came along and they went to the front wheel drive cars and mapped the engine sideways, and the alternators started to gravitate towards these more inaccessible places. And I'm very familiar with difficult alternator replacements. the manufacturer always left contingencies so that you could get the alternator out. Even if they buried it to where you can't see the thing, you open the hood and you can't even see it. They always left contingencies where, okay, so you have to unbolt the AC compressor, but there would always be enough line on the AC, on the hoses, so that you could move the compressor out of the way without draining it and then having to recharge it. There would always be like a little notch in the frame rail, or a little, the way they'll set the brackets and stuff, so that you can just barely, you unbolt one of the motor mounts, tie the motor back, and then you can just barely squeak this thing through, holding it this way, then dropping it this way, and holding it this way. I'm familiar with this stuff. So even though they became more and more difficult as time went on, now they're at the point that, no, just pull the motor out. Zero consideration for anybody having to ever do this job. They offer a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, powertrain warranty, to the original owner on these cars. And I can see the conversation between engineering and management, right? Where somebody from engineering called up and said, hey, listen, this 3.3 turbo engine you want to put in the Stinger, it's not going to work. We can't access some of the simple, normal wear items without actually pulling the motor. And then the management said, well, can we spec an alternator that'll last 100,000 miles, 10 years and 100,000 miles? And the guy in engineering says, well, yeah, but that's the, and then the guy in management just says, well, then do it, and hung up on him, okay? And then the poor engineer he just like pondered his life choices. How did I ever get involved in such an evil industry? So, yeah, I'm rambling, but that's the situation. Total cost for this job, if you're one of the unfortunate souls that actually owns a Kia Stinger or a G70 with the 3.3 turbo motor, and you happen to have to install an alternator in this thing, it's going to cost you between $3,000 and $3,500. The alternator itself is like $500, and by dealer shop, I mean, I guess you could do it yourself cheaper, but who's got to lift at an engine cradle and all of the other things, and a couple of days to kill in order to change an alternator? You're looking at a $3,000 plus repair bill. How insane is that? Okay, so now you're an independent shop. Let's take this one step further, right? You're an independent shop. You have a customer that's got one of these cars that's got 110,000 miles on it and it needs an alternator. And now you get them to cough up you're going to take care of them. $2,500. You get them to cough up $2,500 to fix their $5,000 car, $4,000 car, because by this point, you put an alternator in it. And then 2 weeks later, it comes back and needs another alternator because, as you've already come to expect, at least half of the rebuilds that you take out of boxes these days are junk. What do? You tied up a lift, you tied up a mechanic, you tied up your, a section of your shop for a day or more, a complete day or more, to do this simple, stupid freaking job. And now you got to do it all over again for free a week or two later. It's enough to put you out of business. And forget about the used car dealer. The used car dealers depend on cars that will, their business model depends on cars that can be kept going or revived with simple, replaceable, normal wear items. Once you take that part out of the equation, there's no more viable cars out there for them to make any money off of. So it's like, this is a war. It's an absolute war against the independent shop, the DIYer, and the independent used car industry. Everybody is looking at the right to repair. The manufacturers know this. They know this, okay? Everybody is focused on right to repair. And I'm not saying right to repair isn't important. If you purchase something, you absolutely should have, you own it, okay? You absolutely should have the information and the tools available to you to repair this thing yourself if you choose to. Or bring it to your repair place of choice. Have who you want to fix it. So right to repair is absolutely important. But right to repair focuses on really the electronic, which is another absolute freaking nightmare. The electronic version or aspect of all of this. The proprietary software and the proprietary tools and blah, 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 blah. And it completely ignores the fact that they've gone out of their way to make simple replacement, common wear, normal wear replacement parts as difficult and involved as they possibly can. It's like they have gone out of their way. They actually probably had to try to make this thing inaccessible, completely inaccessible, without dropping the motor. Now, let me just throw this in there real quick. I did see a video where somebody was able to replace one of these without actually removing the engine, but they still had to undo the whole suspension and the steering system and everything else, and drop the subframe and then wiggle and push and so on and so forth, and they were able to get one of these out. It doesn't make it any more palatable. It doesn't make it any easier. The point is, to do this job the right way, this car literally has to come apart. And it's an alternator. It's a freaking alternator. You know, just continuing on this, because now I'm looking at these cars and I'm like, well, what else do I want to learn about them? So as it turns out, the starters are about equally bad. Not as bad, but a starter replacement on one of these cars is right around $1,000. Because they bury the starter, and it's the same thing. With the starter, they're not talking about dropping the whole engine, but they are talking about dropping the subframe, the cradle and all of that, to access the starter. So imagine you pick up one of these cars and you know it's got 120,000, 150,000 miles on it. You put an alternator in it, $3,000, and then let's say 2-3 months later you got to put a starter in it, another $1,000. Not to mention all of the other things. There's zillions of sensors but as I was saying, right to repair mostly focuses on the electronic aspects of it. And in my mind, the and the manufacturers too, I'm pretty sure this is how they're thinking, right? In my mind, all of these electronic systems can ultimately be worked around. There are hackers out there. There are people who dedicate their entire lives to overcoming systems and breaking through firewalls. They live for this. This is what they do. And so even if the manufacturers lock down their information, there's still going to be a subcult that is going to dedicate themselves to getting around all of these things. The workarounds, the wire-arounds, equipment and add-ons are going to be available through the aftermarket. So even if these manufacturers throw up every obstacle, and even if they get all of the laws to protect them, and they always do because they're the ones with the bucks, the electronic aspects of this, in my mind, can be worked around. And the manufacturers know that. And so they're building in another safeguard. So just in case we can't crush the aftermarket, we can't kill the DIY guy and the used car industry, let's make simple, normal replacement parts completely impossible to work with. And that's what they're doing. This is just one example. In my mind, it was like one of the most egregious ones. It was like just insanity. And I've been following this forever because I was in the business. I've been doing this since the 70s. So I remember all of the increasing levels of difficulty. I remember when on the quad 4s they stuck the water pump behind the engine, driven off the timing chain. And those cars, powered with that engine, always ended up in the scrapyard way before their time because nobody wanted to bother doing this crazy water pump on that engine. And it was like the cars was like 8 years old, 10 years old, really nice looking cars, ran great, but they ended up being scrapped because nobody wanted to deal with the exorbitant cost and complication at the time. Today it'd be a walk in the park. But back then nobody wanted to deal with it. So those cars just went to the junkyard when they needed a water pump. And the caddies, I'll never forget, my first caddy, I know, I'm gonna run off on a tangent for a second. This is like, before the internet really became a thing, so looking up stuff wasn't all that simple. You had to make phone calls and go through paper books to find information. So I got a guy contacts me and he's like, hey, I got a caddy and they want $700 to change the starter. Can you do it any cheaper than that? And I'm saying to myself, yeah, of course I can do it cheaper than that. Like, yeah, drop it off to me. I'll take care of you. And I'm saying to myself, man, if I hit this guy for half the price, I'm still going to load my pocket, right? Because at the time, typical starter job was, $150, $200. So he brings me the car. And I'm like, okay, well, let's bang a starter in this thing and pop the old one out and run it down for a core. So I climb under the car and I'm looking, where the hell is the starter? I can't find the starter. I'm looking everywhere. I'm like, what did they do with this thing? Where is it? I remember following battery cables, trying to follow battery cables to see where they put it. It was under the intake manifold. It was the most insane thing at the time. Right. And how many of those cars, how many of those 4100s or the North Stars ended up going to the scrapper because the starter job was just too involved? Yeah. So it's been a slow burn to this point, but now they're becoming obvious about it. Now it's all becoming blatant. And this is how they're going to get you. This is how they're going to secure their place at the top of the food chain, no matter what they do. Guys, if you're an independent shop or you're in the used car business, I would be seriously thinking about how your business is going to run going forward. I know you're up against it already. Well, this is why I'm nowhere near the repair business. This is why I don't deal any type of used cars or anything like that, because I see what's going on. I understand what's going on. And you guys just absorb the punches day after day. It's like, what new type of punishment are we going to deal with now, right? I understand that. But they're really, the manufacturers in this latest generation of cars, and you know it's not going to get any easier going forward. It's a full-on assault. They want you gone. They do not want these cars repaired. They want to sell the car, they want to take it back on a trade-in, sell it again, and then they want it to fall off the face of the earth. They don't want it fixed. They want it gone, right to the scrapper. And they're attacking this from both directions, both electronically and mechanically. I would seriously think about what my business plan or what my options are at this point going forward, because used car business, independent repair shop, you guys are in a heap of trouble. And it's not that, oh, this is gonna happen. It's happening right now. So, but this was just one of the things. I see this stuff all the time. Timing chain jobs, when you go back to the Ford Explorer with the 4.0, you had to pull the motor to get the rear timing chain. Another example of planned obsolescence, of planned deliberate difficulty. They literally went out of their way to make that job as difficult as possible. But even back then, that was the exception rather than the rule. And now it's like everything is like that. Everything is like that. I keep seeing examples of this stuff, but this one in particular really got me. It's like, yeah, change the alternator, sure. Pull the motor, $3,500 bucks. I'll see you tomorrow.